if I could, Seth, I'd like to thank some people. I'd like to thank the Red Cross and first responders. I'd also like to give a special thanks to my lovely wife, Mary Pat Christie, who's here tonight, who put up with a husband who has smelled like a wet fleece for the past 3 weeks.
You have been wearing that fleece a lot.
Oh, yeah, it's basically fused to my skin at this point.
Yeah. But I have seen you wearing suits.
Oh, yeah, but I wear them over the fleece. I'm going to die in this fleece. But that's okay. It's a good fleece.
It is a good fleece.
Stop saying things I've already said.
All right, okay.
Now, in the last 3 weeks, Governor Christie has been synonymous with, you know, being front and present on the ground and trying to get the New Jersey coastline up and going again. His daily press conferences, that signature fleece, they've become a constant mainstay of the post-Sandy era. His brief bromance with President Obama also out of the fact that both of them wanted the same thing.
He has sprung into action immediately to help get us those things while we were in the car riding together. So I want to thank him for that. He has worked incredibly closely with me since before the storm hit. I think this is our 6th conversation since the weekend, and it's been a great working relationship to make sure that we're doing the jobs that people elected us to do. And I cannot thank the President enough for his personal concern and compassion for our state and for the people of our state.
Yeah, there was a kissing sound effect going on there. But all in all, most agree. Whatever you think of Governor Christie, we've been critical of him on this show. He has been a loud and an effective voice calling for, among other things, gas rationing, emergency aid, evacuations. Anybody who thinks it was easy here has a very short memory in what happened in the immediate aftermath and all the uncertainty, and he's been present. But what about the other faces in the storm? For better or worse, Sandy has tested leadership and different leadership styles of elected officials, and 3 faces of the storm emerged: Christie, Cuomo, and Bloomberg. Now, for Governor Cuomo, his signature move during Sandy was not the feel your pain hug, but the pretty stern scold.
LIPA did not work for many, many years. It was fatally flawed. It was without function. I believe LIPA has been beyond repair for a long, long time.
Before the first raindrop, it was pretty clear Cuomo doesn't like LIPA. Now, his post-Sandy leadership regarded as pretty strong, effective, yet some might want to hold him accountable after a while instead of just banging on LIPA to do something about it or take some more emergency action for those people that were out there. And also, there wasn't as much of the warm touch here in the field that many at least saw from across the river. And then you got Mayor Mike Bloomberg, whose executive-like coolness could have come off of these as reassuring and competent, or to some removed.
I don't think it's any secret, but Sandy hit us very hard. It was a storm of historic intensity, but New Yorkers are resilient, and we have seen an enormous outpouring of support from people eager to volunteer, donate, and help out.
And also the woman whose sign became a star herself. Now, Bloomberg's response regarded some of a mixed bag, especially given his miscalculation on the marathon. But starting, Dom, with Bloomberg, for the MTA to be up and running 3 days later, okay, and the idea to pull all the cars off, the rail cars and everything else, it's easy to say we all would have done it. He got Manhattan going. Now, Staten Island might say, what about us? But the fact of the matter is, he wasn't warm and fuzzy, didn't even pretend to be warm and fuzzy.
Not a warm and fuzzy guy.
And while I get it, it's all about competency, I think a little bit more of that certainly would have gone a long way.
It would have gone a long way, but that's just, anyone that knows Mike Bloomberg knows that's just not his style. He's a very competent type person, but if you really want a shoulder to cry on, Billionaire Mike is not your guy. I give Andrew Cuomo, of all the 3, the most credit as being the most effective. And the reason being, he did do the I feel your pain thing. Maybe the camera wasn't there all the time, but he was on the ground. And I think New Yorkers respect the fact that, okay, the new executive director of LIPA, whoever that might be, what's the first thing they're going to do? What's the first thing they're going to do, Richard?
They're going to go kiss the ring of Governor Cuomo.
That, and they're going to make sure that there's an emergency preparedness plan. So should this happen again, the governor does not rain on their parade.
Okay, my only point, though, about that was he knew LIPA was a hot mess before the storm.
And he's corrected it.
And for 3 weeks, all he did was scream about it. And
all he did?
Well, about LIPA, at least.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it's also an authority, which makes it a quasi-government entity to begin with. So he's yelling and screaming into the wind a little bit.
It got to be a little monotonous day after day how bad they are. Now,
Turned it around. The guy is gone.
fair enough. Andrew, where would you put Cuomo in this?
I think Cuomo's done pretty well. We have to figure out a gold standard for how you handle these sorts of things. I guess it would be Giuliani after 9/11
Yeah.
as sort of the gold standard for this. And in that case, I mean, he wasn't warm and fuzzy either. And no, I don't think anybody's going to mistake Chris Christie for being warm and fuzzy. But I don't think that.
I think he was.
I don't think that.
See, I disagree.
I don't think that connection is as important to this as you might think.
See,
it's about information and help.
I think long term you're right, but I think short term people need to know that you know how bad it is and that you really care. And I think when I remember that first day after day, we were doing nothing but the press conferences, and I was at the desk for this, when he said, I couldn't find a place to put the chopper down because I got boats on Route 35, I got houses here on the Turnpike. It's really, really, really bad. And listen, whatever you think, when George W. Bush had the bullhorn on the rubble, America wanted to hear that. And I think for Christie, with all the jokes about the jumpsuits and the fleece, you said it, nobody's ever going to debate he loves the place. Now, long term, it's going to be about competency. It's about the money to rebuild, and people may not remember the first month. But for the first month, it's that he's the first guy who did the gas rationing. He's the first guy of everybody out here who had, I think, more clearer directives. I thought Christie acquitted himself really well.
I think Chris Christie gets the Goldilocks Award in that he was just right. Ultimately, our citizenry, and here's what I mean by that. Our citizenry are looking for, emotion and compassion from their political leaders. Whether we want to admit it or not, we need that sense of connection with our leaders. It's one of the reasons Mitt Romney didn't do as well as he had hoped he would do. And Chris Christie, in my mind, was able to combine that emotion with real concrete results and action and bipartisan praise of the president. When the president came into his state and did what he needed to do, Chris Christie stepped up and said, I don't care if we're X number of days out from an election. My state's hurting, and if this guy's going to come in and help it.
Remember the first thing that happened was he was chewing out the Atlantic City mayor the night before, and I was like, listen, if I'm in Atlantic City, I want to hear that. I want to hear you yelling at my mayor. And it turned from that point on.
And keep in mind, Christie's going to have a huge problem with Atlantic City going forward. But this may be a split the baby kind of answer, but I think all three of them lived up to what we expected of them. You expected Christie was going to be emotional and passionate, and that Cuomo was going to be a little more
marathon misstep by the mayor is going to hurt. I mean, it's not going to hurt.
And that
but I thought
Bloomberg
it was going to waste the 3 or 4 days.
Bloomberg was going to be focused entirely on Manhattan.
All right, we jump to a break here. Talk at the table when we come back.